Hello and welcome to another How I Painted. Today I'll be painting Garen from Wildlands. First I'm taking a look at the concept art, kind of get me an idea of what colors I'm going to use. I begin with Trollblood Base from the P3 line. I'm going to put it in my palette there. I'm going to mix in some Glaze medium from Vallejo. This is going to extend the drying time and also make it go on a little smoother and slightly more transparent. I have primed the Mini with something of a zenithal prime. I primed it gray first and then white from a 45-degree angle above. So I'm going to cover the most of the Mini in this Trollblood Blue, all of the robe sections. Next I'll be using P3 Underbelly Blue, and I'm going to be mixing this with a bit of Glaze medium as well. And I am going to paint this on the raised areas of the robe. Now, some of the Trollblood Blue paint is still a little wet, and that's kind of good because I want to blend it a little bit. And if the darker blue is still wet, then you will get a little bit of a blended look. That's one of the upsides of using Glaze medium, is it gives you longer to work with the paint, and if you do it right, you can use a highlighting color and you're almost mixing the paints on the model. Or at least you can get a smoother transition. Now I'm not doing much of that here. I'm not I could be feathering it without paint on the Mini. Okay, I'm moving on to Battlefield Brown for the hair. He's got a beard and a mustache. So a little fine detail work. For the skin tone, I'm using Midlund Flesh from P3 Paint. I'm doing the skin on the feet before painting the sandal because it's hard to get into all the nooks and crannies. So I can be imprecise with the skin tone on the feet, and then more careful when I'm painting the sandal color on top of it. It'll be easier to pick out the raised part of the sandal than it would be to kind of get underneath that sandal and do the skin without getting the skin tone on the sandal strap. Just a tiny bit of arm in there. I'm just trying to get it a little bit of flesh color. I don't get a shot of it, but I'm using Famar Black from P3 for the gloves. Next I'll be getting out the aptly named Bootstrap Leather for the sandals. And being careful not to hit any of the skin areas. Still on Bootstrap Leather, I'm going to be edge highlighting the raised areas of the hair to give a little bit of highlight. Now I'm kind of touching the raised areas with the edge of the brush instead of trying to pick them out with the tip of the brush. It's a little bit like a dry brush in that you're dragging it across, but of course the brush isn't actually dry or even wiped off. Next I'm using Reikland Flesh Shade from Citadel paint to shade the skin. And I wasn't being careful on the leather, I think. it works just as well as a shade for the leather as it does for the skin underneath. Next up is Underbelly Blue mixed with some Glaze medium. And now I'm going to begin trying to give his eyes the glow effect. The simple way to do this is just to get a blob of color in the eye cavity and then bring out the pupil with a white. Now I over-thinned the Underbelly Blue here, so it just didn't quite have the effect I wanted. In retrospect, actually, a more transparent blue might have been better, but anyway, I didn't think it was dark enough at the time. So I did another layer of Underbelly Blue after the first layer had somewhat dried to get a more intense bluish effect. The eye wasn't shaping up exactly how I was hoping, so I switched over to Morrow White to begin work on the orb that he's holding. I'm trying to get a glow effect for this as well, so I begin by mixing Morrow White with mixing medium so that the white will go on a little smoother, and I'm going to paint the entire orb with white. With my white out, I'm going to try to dab in the pupil here. Next up is Drakenhof Nightshade from Citadel paint. And yeah, I just wasn't satisfied with how dark or how light it was, where it was kind of meant to have a blue glow. So I'm just putting a little bit of Drakenhof Nightshade in there to bring out the distinction between the pupil specifically and the rest of the area. I tried not to get it on where the white was most extreme. I'm also going to be using this Drakenhof Nightshade over the whole robe. Now there was a little bit of grit in my paint, it seemed, so you'll see that in the final picture. It was unfortunate, but it kind of made the robe a little gritty. Maybe there were some dried flecks. Anyway, I'm trying to keep the shade, particularly on that upper raised, the shoulders area. I want it to be quite a stark contrast, so I'm filling up the recesses. I can't quite achieve the same thing on the lower part of the robe. This is just a second layer of white. Because the recesses are too large, the shade doesn't quite pool properly. I'm using Ironhull Grey for the base. And lastly, a little more Bootstrap Leather for the belt. If I had painted this before, it would have been very difficult to keep the Drakenhof Nightshade from obscuring the brown there. After that all dries, I'll be spraying Garen with a testors dullcote to protect the paint job. That about wraps up how I painted Garen from Wildlands. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy painting.